The Nag Hammadi codices and the Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets both tell of alien intervention with humanity. Let's talk a little further about the origin of the Anunnaki script. A collector's edition entitled Secrets of the Da Vinci Code, published by U.S. News and World Report, features a brief interview with James Robinson, general editor of the Nag Hammadi Library in English, correcting Da Vinci Code author Dan Brown's reference to the Nag Hammadi text as scrolls. Robinson points out that they are codices, books with individual pages. They are actually the oldest examples we have of leather-bound books, he said. Amazingly, whatever the significance of their content, and we have yet to comprehend what that might be, the Nag Hammadi codices are the earliest surviving examples of bound books. Close reading of these arcane materials shows that the Gnostics, as teachers in the ancient mysteries were deeply concerned with an alien intrusion upon humankind. Entities that they called archons appear to be identical to the extraterrestrials of modern ufology. The codices indicate both reptilian and gray types, a draconic, alpha draconic type, and a neonate type suggested by the image of a prematurely born fetus. The former are the overlords, the latter servile robotic drones who obey a hive mentality. The Nag Hammadi codices do not contain graphic physical description of these alien intruders, but present ample information to profile them comparatively with the two types of ETs most widely discussed today. Perhaps 1/5 of the intelligible material in the Nag Hammadi codices concerns the origin, methods, and motives of the archons, also called authorities, governors. Their name derives from the Greek arche, first from the beginning, because, according to Gnostic cosmology, they emerged at an early stage of the solar system previous to the formation of the Earth. These bizarre entities may be regarded as a locust-like species of cyborgs with silicon-based bodies so designed to permit only brief forays into the Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere. They inhabit the solar system at large, traveling among the planets in alien-engineered spacecraft. Gnostic texts hint that they may be compared to custodial engineers of the inanimate clockwork mechanism of the system. Some, but not all, UFO sightings and abductions may be attributed to them. Although archons do exist physically, the real danger they pose to humanity is not invasion of the planet, but invasion of the mind. Invasion.
Invasion of the mind.
Invasion of the mind.
Invasion of the mind.
Tess.
Pairing.
Woo! Thank you, my dear and esteemed viewer. I had another sort of invasion, a system shutdown. That happens sometimes when you reveal the truth, the frequency, the dark cabal, they like to do that. So although archons do exist physically, the real danger they pose to humanity is not invasion of the planet, but invasion of the mind. The archons are intrapsychic mind parasites who access human consciousness through telepathy and simulation. They infect our imagination and use the power of make-believe for deception and confusion. Their pleasure is in deceit for its own sake, without a particular aim or purpose. They are robotic in nature, incapable of independent thought or choice, and have no particular agenda except to live vicariously through human beings. Bizarrely, they are able to pretend an effect on humans which they do not really have. For instance, they cannot access human genetics, but they can pretend to do so in such a way that humans fall for the pretended act, as if staged events were taken for real. In this respect, archons are the ultimate hoaxers. This is the essence of the archontic intrusion. The trick is, if humanity falls under the illusion of superhuman power, it becomes as good as real, a self-fulfilling delusion. In the cosmic perspective, the archons present a dynamic aspect of the evolutionary scenario of humankind, through which human potential is tested. The Gnostic view of their role closely matches the flyers in the active side of infinity, the last book of Carlos Castaneda, who says that the flyers are the means by which the universe tests us. There are numerous close parallels between Castaneda's and Gnostic teachings. The profile of the archons is not speculative. It follows what can be gathered from the Gnostic writings. For instance, the Nag Hammadi Codices texts describe how the archons attempted to rape Eve, clearly a mythological rendition of genetic intervention. Such passages appear to support the claims of alien interbreeding so widely discussed today. But in the Gnostic account, the alien intruders did not succeed in this act of cross-species intervention. They tried, but failed. The notion that archons present a test to humanity, explicitly stated by Castaneda, if one accepts the archons' flyers correlation, can also be traced in some Nag Hammadi Codice writings, especially in the Apocryphon of John. This text suggests that the Aeon Sophia, the cosmic intelligence of the earth, engages the archon species and uses its deviant and deceptive influence for such a purpose. The account of how the overlord of the authorities committed adultery with wisdom, Sophia, and binds humanity to a chain of blind compulsion is baffling, to say the least. And that can be found in the Nag Hammadi Codices in chapter 1, verse 28. To sort out and clarify what the Sophianic narrative may have to say about the test of the archons is a great challenge to our understanding of the Gnostic message and how it can benefit humanity today. So, the earliest surviving documents in book form, the Nag Hammadi Codices, found in Egypt in 1945, contain an account of alien intrusion with descriptive clues on the physical form of the intruders. But what about the earliest known writings in any form? Archaeologists tell us that cuneiform writing was invented in Mesopotamia around 3200 BC, long before bound books appeared, way before. The cuneiform record on clay tablets presents a fascinating repertoire of stories about human prehistory. Cuneiform texts such as the Atrahasis, the Enuma Elish, Enki, and the World Order describe an alien race called the Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. As Zechariah Sitchin translates that term, Sitchin is well known for his densely researched books on the Anunnaki, whom he identifies with the biblical Nephilim and the Watchers of the Book of Enoch. These are alien entities who came into the daughters of men, as Genesis says. In short, they interbred with the human race. Assumed to be factual, the Sumerian tablets give an account of alien intervention upon humankind by a master race from another world or dimension. This is the Anunnaki script, as I call it. Sitchin and many others take this script for a record of actual events in prehistory. The tablets describe two Anunnaki leaders, Enki and his half-sister Ninhursag, who produce a hybrid slave race by mixing their divine genes with the inferior genes of the Lulu, the indigenous ape-like peoples of the planet. Thus, an alien interbreeding program is central to the Anunnaki narrative. This is also a key event in the reptilian agenda. Indeed, the story of Enki and Ninhursag may be considered the foundation myth of that agenda. A foundation myth is a story that legitimates a social or cultural custom or order. It is worth noting that the Anunnaki script is the foundation myth of theocracy, rulership by the gods, or descendants of the gods. The ancient theocrats claimed descent from the reptilian alien race. It is an indisputable fact that this story is written down in the oldest surviving records, but is the story itself a fact? And if Anunnaki intervention were not a fact, but a fiction presented as fact, how would we know? How would we be able to tell the difference? What critical faculties would be required for such an exercise of discernment? How amazing it is that the oldest known writings and the earliest surviving books both tell the same story. The cuneiform tablets, which I don't have an example of, however, and the Nag Hammadi books, which I do, both describe an alien intervention scenario. To my knowledge, no attention has yet been given to this remarkable coincidence. But hold on a second. There is a huge difference in the way that these two sources handle the foundation myth of the reptilian agenda. The cuneiform record presents alien intervention as if it were solid fact, an event that really happened in prehistory. Yes, as I've maintained, reading the Epic of Gilgamesh, that was not like some myth passed down. That was scribes transcribing and depicting actual events they witnessed. By contrast, Gnostic writings and the Nag Hammadi codices put the story of the Anunnaki, or the Archons, in the cosmological perspective of the fallen goddess myth, then analyze and deconstruct it in quite rigorous terms. The trained seers of the mysteries had a definite fix on the Anunnaki, including a view of their origins and motives, and within that view they took a critical approach to intervention. In short, they deconstructed the Sumerian narrative and exposed part of it to be a fabrication, a lie. The cuneiform record itself is just a story without critical commentary. We are not told the source of the story who authored it. By contrast, we know that the Nag Hammadi codices texts come from Gnostic texts of the pre-Christian mysteries. Although almost all the authors remain anonymous, we know them as having been participants in that ancient tradition of spiritual education, the mystery schools. The resident seers of those organizations took special interest in a panoramic view of human evolution, with particular attention to interference from non-human channels. But they did not report that the human species has been engineered by alien forces. Several passages in the Nag Hammadi codices describe the alien interbreeding program, yes, but always treating it as a failed venture. The Archons came to Adam. When they saw Eve talking to him, they said to each other, "What sort of creature is this luminous woman? Now come, let us lay hold of her and cast our seed into her, that she may become soiled and unable to access her inner light. Then those whom she bears will be under our charge." But Eve, being a free power, laughed at their decision. She put mist in their eyes and escaped them. And that's on the origin of the world in Nag Hammadi Codices, chapter 5, verses 116. This is one of several riveting passages that show Eve, the primal woman who represents the human race, outwitting the Archons. Another text describes how Eve leaves her phantom image for the Archons to defile, but they are unable to access her body, i.e. human genetic structure. If the Gnostics knew what they were talking about and were not themselves merely fabricating a tall tale, the Archon Anunnaki race did attempt to interbreed with humanity but failed. If this is true, the cuneiform record is false, a deliberate fiction intended to deceive. It is mythological disinformation. That's right, mythological disinformation. That possibility must be allowed, but can it be investigated? My dear and esteemed viewer, consider this. Actual alien intervention in human genetics would have an effect, obviously, but equally so would a false claim of intervention were it taken for real. The physical and evolutionary effect of genetic intervention, however, would be impossible to trace without samples of pre-intervention DNA to compare to modern DNA. So, even if it is literally true, the cuneiform story cannot be confirmed or denied scientifically. There is no way to prove the effects of actual genetic intervention in a remote time, but the effects of a hoax purporting such intervention can be investigated. Gnostic seers appear to have understood that the interventional power of the archons is pure fakery, like the special effects of the Wizard of Oz. But for humanity, imagination is powerfully real and directs our purposeful behavior in a crucial way. We have first to imagine a goal or objective in order to pursue it. Presented with a decoy in place of a real objective, we will pursue the decoy and adapt our behavior to a false set of events. The Sophionic story about the testing of the archons may refer to the risk of pursuing fake objectives such as a war on terror, when we fail to apply our intelligence to the quest for a true version of events. The archon story tests us, perhaps more than the archons themselves do or can do. The intervention story tests human credibility, and poses a riddle. Do you accept the power of your imagination to invent something that comes true and use it in that way, or are you in default, imaginatively overpowered by an intervention that pretends to be true? The reptilian agenda, propounded by David Icke and others, is an extrapolation of the Sumerian cuneiform story. If the Gnostic critique of the Anunnaki script is correct, this would amount to the unwitting perpetuation of an ancient hoax. Icke and others, such as Michael Tessarion and Jordan Maxwell, appear to be completely uninformed about Gnostic teachings on the archons. Moreover, they do not question Sitchin's weak point, namely his inability to confirm the return of Nibiru, the home planet of the Anunnaki, by astronomical science, and his failure or refusal to describe their physical appearance. Most ET speculators who follow Sitchins assume that the Anunnaki are reptilians. For instance, R.A. Bolle in Flying Serpents and Dragons, an excellent book, by the way, and more deeply researched than Sitchin's books in some ways. Another account of the failed rape of Eve occurs in the reality of the archons in Nag Hammadi codices. That would be in the second part, chapter 4. Here again, the mystery teachers often offer wise counsel concerning the reptilian factor in human evolution. According to the Gnostics, the serpent in the Garden of Eden was a benefactor because it advised the first humans to eat the forbidden fruit that opened their eyes to heightened or paranormal perception. The reality of the archons says explicitly, the female spiritual principle came through the snake, the instructor. This passage identifies the psychophysical energy known in Asian mystical practices as kundalini, the serpent power. This electricity-like spiraling energy called kundalini belongs equally to the cosmos, the earth, and the human body, integral to our corporeal and spiritual makeup. It has been universally equated with goddess divinities or Shaktis. Raising kundalini is the aim of yogic practices that have persisted for thousands of years. The serpentine power is also the form of divine energy, intelligence witnessed by countless people who have undergone ayahuasca trance. Veteran shamans assert that this serpentine power is an actual dynamism of nature, a supernatural creature to be encountered in the altered state of ayahuasca trance over and over again. Sachamama, the great serpentine wisdom goddess of the Amazon, is identical with the rainbow serpent of the Australian Aborigines. Countless other examples and parallels of the female spiritual principle could be given, but note carefully, this telluric vision serpent is not a reptilian entity. A serpent is a reptile, but not every reptile is a serpent. An iguana a salamander, a monitor lizard from Indonesia. These are reptiles, but not serpents. No one mistakes a lizard for a garden snake. The snake exhibits a particular legless morphology of the reptilian class of creatures, distinct and separate from other reptiles. But where in all the accounts and analysis of the reptilian agenda does anyone make this obvious distinction? So far, nowhere. Whatever the threat to humanity, real or imagined, coming from reptilians, such as the scaly overlord of the Gnostic archons, the gift of the serpent power is clear. In all esoteric systems, Eastern and Western, the serpent is the agent and symbol of wisdom, Sophia. In Asia and in the Western mysteries, masters of the coiling energy were called serpents of wisdom. They were teachers, healers, and guides, not power-crazed theocrats or tyrants who claimed descent from alien serpent gods. Gnostic initiates and their counterparts in the ancient world never claimed to be descendants of off-planet deities as theocratic rulers did, citing the Anunnaki script. The benevolent and healing serpent power is a spiritual birthright that bonds the human species directly to the planetary goddess. Kundalini is essential to the wisdom endowment that nature has implanted in us for sanity. Countless myths attest to the beauty and power of the serpentine connection. Eve, the instructor, did not merely eat the forbidden fruit presented by the snake in Eden. She herself is an instrument of the serpent power. The role of this power as a teacher, healer, and visionary guide to the human species is immeasurably great, and the record of its presence stands out everywhere in ancient mythology, mystical and esoteric traditions, and indigenous lore. The form of the archons, or Anunnaki ETs, is reptilian, draconic, alpha draconic in the Nag Hammadi codices text. But the faculty built into our psychosomatic structure by which we detect and repel alien intrusion is serpentine. To confound the divinely endowed serpentine power integral to our bio-psychic functions with the alien reptilian menace is grotesque, a ridiculous error. The difference between the two is as clear as day once it is pointed out. No one doing research into ancient esoteric and mythological lore should fail to note the difference. Writers such as David Icke dwell on the reptilian menace as the problem facing humanity, but ignore the serpentine endowment provided as the solution to that very threat. They explain in detail the fight or flight impulses of the R complex, or reptilian brain, without a word on the serpent power that resides in the spinal column, or how it informs the subtle anatomy of the chakras and enlivens the entire network of the autonomic nervous system. It's in the spine, stupid. Gnostics from the mysteries taught that we must recognize our benign serpentine endowment to face the intrusive reptilian influence. The Gospel of Philip describes the use of the serpentine power kundalini to repel alien intrusion. Today we hear claims regarding reptilian aliens, of how they manipulated us genetically in ancient times, of their horrific rituals and shape-shifting powers, of how they are running the world, etc. Unfortunately, most of the chatter on the reptilian agenda ends up providing hype for the scaly intruders, who in my opinion are enormously overrated. Gnostics taught that the signature of the archons is hal, the Coptic word for simulation. They warned us in no uncertain terms to distinguish between what the archons can actually do and what they merely simulate with the alien technology of virtual reality, or the artificial intelligence hive mind. Metaverse. These cosmic cousins of ours may be lolling in perverse delight, laughing in perverse delight, LOLing in perverse delight at bringing humanity down to their level, turning us into monsters of aggression and conformity, slavish control freaks, etc., etc. But their game or test is not what it appears to be. If they prevail by tricking us to annihilate ourselves, what if ARCHON, C-O-N, like con man, looming power over us depends upon the con we perpetrate in our own minds, giving our power away to them. Imagination fueled by kundalini gives total immunity to alien intrusion is what the Gnostics taught. All right, let me read that again. Imagination fueled by kundalini gives total immunity to alien intrusion. That is what the Gnostics taught. To return to the coincidence that the oldest bound books and the oldest written records treat the same scenario, the reptilian agenda stands or falls on how we view the cuneiform account, the oldest version of the alien intrusion plot. It would be irresponsible to ignore the deconstruction of those accounts found in the Nag Hammadi codices. Finally, we might ask, who wrote the cuneiform stories? The answer is scribes in the service of the Sumerian theocrats. This answer is incomplete, however, because scribes just write things down. They do not originate what they write. Who then originated the intervention stories taken down in cuneiform by scribes? I propose that it was soothsayers and advisors in the service of the theocrats, the patriarchal tyrants of the Fertile Crescent. No ancient royal court was without a Chaldean or psychic medium, if not a whole team. Is it surprising that psychics advising the theocrats would produce a story to please their masters? Specifically, a story making the tyrants out to be descendants of gods, and at the same time slaves, albeit privileged ones, to the higher race that claims to have created them? This message is schizophrenically ambivalent, and as such totally consistent with the split mind bias of channeled material and the mentality that produces it. The second treatise of the great Seth, in the Nag Hammadi codices, asserts the bold heretical view that Abraham, Moses, the patriarchs, and even Jesus the Messiah were duped by archons. They suffered a false sense of grandiosity based on the illusion of being chosen by the off-planet father god, Jehovah, whom Gnostics identified with the archon overlord, a nasty reptilian called Yaldabaoth. The same observation of duping can be applied to the egomaniacal patriarchs who founded the first city-states in the Near East. They bought the Anunnaki script hook, line, and sinker because it fed their pretensions of descent from superhuman masters and legitimated their enslavement of the general populace. The story, telepathically received by their advising soothsayers, was highly appealing because it provided a divine mandate for their schemes of world domination. Plus, change. Well, plus ça change, plus cela m'imite chose. The more it changes, the more it stays the same. Forgive my French pronunciation, that was atrocious. I apologize. The picture of global realpolitik is not much different today. Now, as a way back then, reptilians may appear to be running the show, but this can be so only if human complicity and credulity enable them to maintain the illusion of power that they do not have. In reality, the authorities rule by the power of illusion, the mainstream media, not by actual and voracious power. Gnostics would insist that actual power on earth comes from the earth through humanity's bond to the planetary goddess whose name means wisdom, Sophia, and whose instrument is serpentine. It may be that the archons fed the Anunnaki script to the ancient mediums to plant a lie in human imagination as a test which Sophia allows him to perform. Such would be my best shot at a brief paraphrase of the baffling passage in the Apocryphon of John. But if the cuneiform stories are the product of psychic channeling in ancient times, then how reliable are they? The scant material surviving in the Nag Hammadi codices reflects the record of trained seers who worked in teams over millennia to explore the supernatural and investigate the prehistory of the human species. The Gnostics who detected the archons were experienced in parapsychology and had a cosmic perspective centered on the divine intelligence of the earth. They learned directly from disciplined trance instruction, giving them access to the planetary mind. They incorporated their learning in thousands of books and founded spiritual universities where they served as the teachers and vocational advisors of the ancient world. They preserved in imagination and practice the connection to the divine source of our species, the pleroma, or galactic center. How reliable is that compared to a psychic medium. The rigorous critical skills of the Gnostics can serve us well today. The reptilian agenda in its modern elaboration needs to be entirely re-examined in the light of Archon theory from the mysteries. The first step in confronting reptilian menace is to set the story straight and see the disinformation in the cuneiform scenario, to name the game of alien deception as the Gnostics themselves did. So, folks, I highly recommend this Nag Hammadi library the editor, James M. Robinson, the general editor, but it was basically the entire library collected and put in this work. It is fascinating and liberating reading. And the importance of the Nag Hammadi codices, not scrolls, is like people Dan Brown. This is the oldest. In 1945, when that little shepherd kid found all these leather-bound books of the Nag Hammadi codices, those were the oldest examples of leather-bound books in the entire that's ever been, and still to this day. So anyway, the importance of the Nag Hammadi codices, to paraphrase Graham Hancock, and this is based on his readings and such, his intimate familiarity with Edgar Cayce and the prophecies of Edgar Cayce. But Graham Hancock said that when the Nag Hammadi codices were discovered and the knowledge revealed to mankind, that single act gave him hope that this world was going to change, and by golly, it sure has. And it's continuing to change and on our path to the new earth and the fifth dimensional, basically gnosis of our light existence, something like that. Anyway, namaste, namaskaram.